Greetings builders! Are you enjoying the Affliction League? I really hope you are, because today I brought you 3 great builds for you to try before this amazing league ends. When you choose the one, you can find the links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. And if this video helps you, please leave a thumbs up to support the channel. Thank you very much, and let's get into it! To start this video, let's take a look at this incredible minion build that combines damage, safety and budget, the Summon Raging Spirit's Guardian with the Templar class. As you know, minion builds are among the best builds out there, and this one in my opinion has the best cost benefit. It's a very simple and safe build for you to complete all content without much investment or effort, awesome for beginners. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how accessible it is. It is super cheap, simple, easy to play, and doesn't need any mandatory unique item. This build is for everyone. It also counts with a great boss damage and survivability. Above all, it has 3 damage auras totally for free and a minion that takes 20% of the damage for you. Now to list the cons, I'll start saying that Raging Spirits have a short duration and you need to keep resummoning them while clearing maps, which might reduce your speed a little. Other than that, this build also doesn't have access to evasion or reach. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 60 chaos. To comfortable advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 100 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines, or you can totally do it with less. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. For clear speed, this build gets 8 out of 10. This is because you have to keep resummoning your Raging Spirits, but as you can see, even though this clear speed isn't super fast, it's perfectly fine for you to play and have a good time. The boss damage is great, it's a 9 out of 10. If you apply all the buffs and maintain 20 spirit summoning, you will easily reach over 15 million DPS, more than enough to decimate all endgame bosses in seconds. For this survivability, I'll give it 10 out of 10. This is because we are talking about a minion build where you just need to summon them and wait behind while they destroy and tank everything for you. You just need to mind your position. But with this build, even if they manage to reach you, you still have high armor and block chance, resulting in an effective HP of over 140,000. Next, we have one of my personal favorites, the Super Cyclone Slayer with the Duelist class. This new PoE expansion brought the Transfigure gems with it. This means an alternative version of active skill gems. The Cyclone skill got the Cyclone of Tumult, that is a Cyclone wider and more powerful, but with the downside of being a lot slower. However, with an easy trick we can remove this downside and simply have a Cyclone with 33% more damage and 40% more area of effect. To list the pros of this build, I would start with clear speed. It's just amazing to be always moving and massacring all the poor enemies on the way. The boss damage is also incredible. Once the build is done, you are going to kill even the big bosses in just a matter of seconds. And above all of that, this build is very simple and easy to put together. Now to list the cons, I would point a few important issues and I'd like to ask you to pay close attention here. You see, this build has a great survivability once it's done. But when you're leveling your character, you need to pace your progression, because you're always very close to enemies. If you're not prepared, you are going to die. So take the extra time to pick up a few more levels before progressing to a high tier content. Another useful tip about your survivability is how to deal with stuns. On this build we get stun immunity with a charm on the new Wildwood Primalist Ascendancy. It is super cheap and easy to get, but if you forget it, you're going to have a bad time. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 115 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 6 divines. You only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Stampede boots that guarantee that your movement speed will always be 150% of its base. This means that the downside of Cyclone of Tumult will mean absolutely nothing to us. For clear speed, I'll give it 9 out of 10. Cyclone never stops moving and have a huge area of effect, so you can farm your maps without the need to stop for casting or anything like that. It's just awesome and very satisfying. The boss damage is just amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. When this build is done, you're going to easily achieve over 15 million DPS, that is more than enough to destroy bosses in just seconds.
Now for the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build achieves over 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and a lot of instant life leech. Now, with the huge Art of Effect bonus from Cyclone of Tumult, you don't even need to stay very close to enemies on endgame, what gives you even more survivability.
Finally, we have this awesome build that is the pinnacle of archer gameplay, the Tornado Shot Deadeye with the Ranger class.
Tornado Shot is so strong that it doesn't even need a returning projectile support gem. This way you can keep your Mirage Archer for a smoother clear speed. Just as I did with the Lightning Arrow build, the complete guide of this one will also count with 2 versions of the build, a budget and a complete one. Each has its own PoE and passive tree, so you can start this build even on a low budget and upgrade it later. To list the pros of this build, I have to start talking about the clear speed and the boss damage. With Tornado Shot, you're going to clear maps in less than a minute and kill bosses in less than a second. This build is also not complicated to put together, I totally recommend it for everyone. Now to list the cons, I would say that this build is not very tanky. Even though you have some defensive layers, it's important to take advantage of your ranged attacks and stay far from danger. If you don't mind your position, you might die. About the budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. But if you go for the complete version, you need to invest at least 4 more divines. On the budget version, you only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Yoke of Suffering amulet that causes all of your elemental damage to shock. This way our enemies take a lot more damage. On the complete version, on the other hand, besides the Yoke of Suffering, you also need the Lionized Fall and the Thread of Hope unique jewels. They are expensive but grant a huge boost to your damage. For clear speed, I'll give this build 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed, and those projectiles explode in more projectiles, chain on enemies, bounce off walls, and go everywhere. You're going to kill enemies that you never even had a chance to see. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Tornado Shot is super strong, and with the help of your ballistas, you're going to kill bosses so fast that you won't even notice them. For this survivability, I'll give this build 8 out of 10. Even though you have armor, evasion, spell suppression, and can kill enemies from a good distance, this build isn't very tanky. If you don't mind your position, you might die.
And that's it for today, guys. Have you tried any of those builds? Please don't forget to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!